Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Marie.
And this is Mock It, a podcast for MetroStar, where we take a deep dive look into UX design, trending design topics, and making our work transform the government. Let's get started.
Yes, so in today's podcast, we're going to talk about forming partnerships and building relationships with customers. So unlike last episode, you get to be in the hot seat. I guess we'll start out easy, because we'll both talk about how do we find ourselves working with a customer in government, and how is it different from working in commercial?
Yeah, so I think first off, on like a big picture, a lot of the ways you end up working with a government customer is you work for a government consulting firm like MetroStar.
Yeah.
And then depending upon how the the consulting firm is set up, you either get hired on to a direct project, or you get hired on as a particular skill set role that then
is needed for that project
Yeah.
or that time period.
Exactly. So that's how usually getting into a customer or client customer works. And then for myself, how I found MetroStar was I was living in Ann Arbor at the time. I'm from DC. I was living in Ann Arbor as my wife was finishing up law school, and we wanted to come home back to DC. Mm-hmm. So before the quarantine, I did a virtual interview with you, actually.
Right, and we talked about that
a couple episodes ago.
Episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I think 3.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so I got lucky that there was a position that fit that I was interested in, and that you guys are interested in having me. So it worked out well. And then I've been with our current client for over 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like a pandemic timing, it doesn't make
just
flows by.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's 2021, and we did the first launch in 2019. So even before, it's been almost 2.5 years. 3.
Yeah.
It was like that summer, fallish time.
Mm-hmm. June of 2019, I started. Yeah.
So, I'm so glad you joined. So for me, this will probably have a lot of opinions. I'm a big fan of recruiting agencies. So it's how I found my first job as well. I like it's kind of like a long extended tryout with the company. So coming from sports and coaching sports, I like that tryout period, right? Both the company is trying me out for those, usually it's about 4 to 6 months the contracts are, but as much as the company is trying me out and seeing if I'm a good fit culturally, do I get my work done and all of that stuff, I'm also trying out the company. Do I like what the role is shaping out to be that I signed on for? Do I like the culture as well? So, and I've had both positive and situations where this also doesn't work for me, and gone on to the next. So that's how I came to MetroStar, was through one of those recruiting agencies, and then so I was a sub and then converted to a MetroStar employee because it was great. I liked, I think within my time I'd been on 3 different projects supporting. I got to know a handful of designers throughout MetroStar, as well as just getting different experiences, and even though they were different, I liked them all the time. And MetroStar, my first job, I like that there's more work than there are people, because that is definitely, there's room to grow, there's room to stretch, and the same skill sets that you like and enjoy, and then also in other ones that you don't have yet. So
yeah, I definitely agree. I think just from the 2 years I've been with MetroStar, I've definitely grown, because there are so many ways that you can stretch on a project, and there are so many ways that your project managers and your teammates will support you to trying out a new skill, trying out a new process or something, just to see if that will help team efficiency. And then you as a person, people are pretty supportive of you being this is not in my wheelhouse, but maybe it'd be cool to try coding. Maybe it would be cool to try XYZ or designing or something like that. And it's been a very supportive culture for going a little bit outside of, what you're strictly hired for, and like maybe what your skill set is,
Yeah.
it's you're able to grow.
Yeah, there is definitely career growth and skill growth. Talking about that, big news. Liz is officially a PM. Do you want to give the specific title on your testing and all?
Yeah, so thanks for that. This last week, Marie and my team and my project managers were very kind and let me take a boot camp for the PMP, which is the Project Management Professional Certification. So for those of you that may be unaware or new to the project management PM world, or sometimes it's called program management depending upon the context, but in our context today, PM will stand for project manager or project management. It's a certification test that you study for depending upon how much you need to catch up or learn about it. It can be anywhere from several months to somewhere in the months range. So I finished a boot camp last week and I took a 4-hour exam on Saturday and thankfully passed. So now I can say I have a PMP certification. So I'm very excited about that and very happy and relieved that that the test went my way. So but definitely this is something that, as we were talking about like growth and stuff like that, as probably a lot of organizations have, and something that definitely MetroStar has, it's, you work on your individual career plan path and sort of like you come in as whatever you are. Like this is like, I came in as a content strategist, and then now I've sort of moved around it within the UX field, and then sort of now into the project management world. And getting a PMP was something that was a goal of mine, and I had all the support and luck that our current project manager and program manager were like, go for it, and they taught like a ton of skills that you learn as you go, but also you need someone guiding you. And I think that that's something that we've been really, really lucky with on our project, that you have people who are guiding you. You have people that are like, showing you the ropes of like, this is what this document is, or this is what this document is, or this artifact, and like learning it in practice, as opposed to, you can read a book all you want, and maybe that works for a lot of people who just like that's their learning style. But for me, I needed like experience
on the job.
Yeah,
getting your hands dirty. So now as a PM, and we've talked about it before, are building the relationship with our customer.
Yes.
Getting to start being the one sending the emails rather than CCing on it because our program manager was sending it for us. Just how that, do you want to talk about how our relationship with our customer has evolved from like that very like sort of stiff, it was all communication was going through our program manager, and now, right, there's multiple touch points to our customer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's actually been one of my favorite parts of our project is we really, when we first joined the project, there's definitely like a fence up of, you would go through our program manager to send different emails, and, she would put that it was from us, but it wouldn't be from our email. So we sort of just evolved in, I would say, like a really natural way of just, taking on different meetings that, our PM would be like, here, lead this.
Yeah.
So then we got to have more FaceTime in meetings, and then from there it kind of escalated that, well, if we're leading meetings, we should be also leading the communication around this topic. And, one thing that our team does do, which I would recommend, and I actually think it's a huge benefit for us, we do peer reviews of emails we're sending out. So just in case, you have a little typo here or there, or even more substantive stuff. I know that I've drafted stuff with dates in it being hey,
yeah,
just
more intense emails where you're like, this needs to happen, but only pretty please.
Yeah, exactly. And it's finding that right tone. And I think as you, just in any scenario, as you get to work with someone more, people have different styles. Even us working with our client, you just have like your natural style of writing an email, your natural style of leading a meeting or like presenting work or something like that. And I think just sort of, one, communicating to your PM or your project manager, whomever, that you want to take on this larger role, I think is step one. Because I think that's definitely something that I know I talked to our PM about, being like, in our like reviews or whatever, saying I want to take this larger role. And having that support was definitely key to give, like, one, my own confidence, and then two, like, as a employee, to, like, you're not breaking process.
Right. And I think talking about process, right, we do have peer reviews of our emails or, like, our calendar events, because we have gotten really good in people send out meeting invites, and sometimes you join, you're like, I don't even know what this is about. Our team has gotten really good to make sure we're always including that in for our customer. The customer knows when they've accepted that meeting, what are they accepting, what's expected to be talked about. If they need to prep, we've thrown in stuff just like, if you have the time, like, here's like the specific questions or topics we're reviewing. If not, like, all good too. But I think that's helped to develop trust with them, right? And that we've also hit all of those topic points. And then if something has come up in the meeting, we're like, okay, like, are you comfortable talking about this now? Or we can schedule a follow-up meeting. So really, like, it's respect, showing care for them, right? We always want our customers to look good. So how do we support that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point you brought about the meeting invites, especially because, on your team, you're so used to being able to be like, touch base on X, Y, Z. And like, of course, the other person knows what you're touching base about because you're like in the team.
Talking before about
it. Like in a daily stand-up or something. But sometimes you don't have that luxury with your client, or if you're talking with a stakeholder for an interview or something like that. Yeah, I think that's a great point that you've brought up, that I think that tip has like really worked well for our team and worked well with building that relationship with our client, because it just, as you said, it's the respect thing, and then it's trust building. Like, our client knows that we're not going to waste their hour of time between like 1 and 2 as we're meeting about whatever we're meeting about, because we're coming in prepared, and it's not going to be like us fumbling for the first 15 minutes hoping that we can like pull it together. And then one other thing before we dive in a little bit deeper, we will probably use a shorthand for CORE. It's a COR, which is a contracting officer representative. So that is someone who, if you're on a government contract, it is the government employee that oversees your contract. And then a lot of times it could be the decision maker depending upon how things are structured. But in our case, we interact with our CORE daily. And it's become really, instead of it being like, client and us, it's really like a relationship that's like, we're both on the same team, we're both striving for the same goal. And so that's been something that's been really, that we've worked hard to achieve, but now it's a very,
it's very collaborative with them.
And I don't know if you felt this, like when we first started sending emails, I was like, oh, like I cannot have
so intense.
Yeah, like I cannot have a typo. I can't, like, I gotta be like very like professional. But now it's, you kind of ease into that relationship of it's gonna be okay. Like, they know you know them, and like no harm.
Yeah, definitely. I do not have my panic attacks before hitting send anymore that I've like royally screwed up.
Rereading 50 times to make sure that you didn't forget a word.
Right.
Yeah.
No. And now I can like just shoot off like one-offs fairly confidently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think that's been a really nice benefit as we've grown this relationship with our client. And then one thing that we also manage is competitive relationships between, we obviously have a government client. We are not the only one that has a contract with our government client. And there's a lot of building that happens between us and other contractors just, to get the work done. It's we have a key piece of work, another contractor may have another key piece of work, and it can't be, everyone has to work together for the common goal. And so that's definitely something that our team has, I think, worked hard on the last few years, because we've we've gotten to know different contractors.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten to really parse out what their skill sets are and what their, like, where they're coming from a particular angle for their project.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I completely agree. Right, so we have like, how do you manage the competitive relationships? And when you like, I think we took the competition out of it, right? We all knew that we had our aspect of the project to meet the customer's goals and to put them in the best light, that instead of, because sometimes there's this like, oh, let me call out, you didn't do your job, or oh, I can't do my job because so-and-so didn't. We've, instead of changing like that tone of our conversations, right, it's been very collaborative of, hey, our user research says this in the patterns. We think this is a really good idea. We don't do the content specifically, but so we can go to the team who does do the content, or there's a part of the application that we don't work on, but we can share the data that we have just come across. Because like I said in the previous episode on design systems, the end users don't realize that they're different parts of the project and that they're different teams. So sometimes when we're having some customer interviews, we get information not specifically on what we're touching, but that we're open to share it and open to sharing that design system. It's become a collaborative relationship instead of competitive. So.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think one thing that was definitely new to me coming on to government contracts is you have to your core always has to be a touch point.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't directly go to our counterpart on a different in a competitor.
Yeah, someone outside of MetroStar.
Yeah, someone outside of MetroStar. Yeah. So like we can't go to our colleague that's on a different contract because like you as a MetroStar person can't dictate work to someone else unless that work has been approved by the core. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a triangular relationship, but as Maria was just saying, like we've taken that competition out of it and we have like a common goal. Mm-hmm. So then that way it is like we're all working for the same thing, and we found ways that, making sure that our first off that our project manager and program manager are included on everything. Mm-hmm. So that way, if there's anything, like our PM isn't going to be blindsided by anything, and then that way, I'm sure the PMs of different contracts talk to each other, so then they everyone's on the same page. So that's something that we have made sure to do, that we are very open on our team, both in our stand-ups, but also in communication, that people are CC'd to know what's going on. Yeah. And then also working with our core, if we need to reach out to someone on a different contract, we get that approved, so it's there's no conflict. And again, it's making sure that it's out of respect and communication, like abundance of communication, mm-hmm. to make sure that the reason we're doing X, Y, or Z, or requesting another contractor to do X, Y, or Z is for the greater end user benefit.
Yeah, and I think a really good tip on that one, with everything's in writing and in emails, when we do ask our core, like, hey, we need X, Y, Z. So a specific example I have now is I need some API credentials from someone else on a different team, a different project, for our developers to be able to build out a component. So we type it all up, everything's like written out, which is definitely number one tip, because if everything's in writing, right, there's no he said, she said. Nice. And then in the writing, we always throw in our little tidbit, because we sort of templatize these emails. Yeah. That like, please let us know if this is approved and who else to CC on it. Right, because I know who can get me the API information from the other project, but I don't necessarily know their PM and stuff. And so it's very helpful that our core is like, yeah, great, I approve this. Also include, Joe, John, Sam, whoever, including the other person's PM. So making up names. I didn't want to call them XYZ. So it's the last minute.
I liked it.
Yeah. But yeah, so then, our work that's getting approved right now, the other PM on the other projects are also aware. Like you said, our PM doesn't want to get caught off guard. We don't want them to get caught off guard. We also don't want to do that to other people, right? Because that's the first, you feel caught off guard, you get defensive, and we're not trying to do that to anyone.
Yeah, and I think like naturally what happens is you become you become friendly with people on
Yeah.
different contracts, and one of the things that we do is we host monthly office hours, which is basically like an open forum for anyone that the Corps is invited, which is a large group. It's our team,
Yeah.
other contracting teams, our clients team, their internal people. It's a fairly large invitee list, and then everyone. Basically, the way we host it is, we have our website up and we intake feedback, and through using that method, but through using some of the communication methods that Maria's talked about with like building those relationships, from the email side when we're actually in a meeting with these people, you start to be able to have like a very friendly tone with them, and you can, not that I don't want to say joke around, but it's much more.
I mean, it's right.
It's comfortable.
Yeah, it's work joking around.
Yeah.
It's not like at the bar with your friends joking around. It's professional joking around, but it's lighthearted, right? It's not super like, oh, hello today. We have one person in office hours who they're lovely and they're always like ready to provide feedback, and I love at how hard that they're combing through our website and anything that we're producing, because it just makes the product so much better. But so we can joke around when they speak up with it.
Oh, yeah. And it's, I love that. That's exactly like what I was thinking of too. It makes things much more fun in the meetings, and meetings aren't contentious. They are they're very professional, like we've said, but you're not as tense as going into a room of people who you don't know.
Yeah.
And definitely we've been lucky with building these relationships while we've been in a pandemic. I mean, we've
done most of it all virtually.
Yeah, exactly. And having these group meetings has really helped. And not to say like the first couple were definitely like intimidating, just because it's
there was like 50 other people on to Liz and I. So I think it was like human nature of like, oh man, we were like way outnumbered, but knowing that it couldn't really go wrong, but just there were so many people to provide their feedback at one time.
Yeah, and now I look at it, I'm like, oh, good, there's a lot of people, because it means like we're doing, like people want to come to these, and like they're like actually getting something.
Like us.
Yeah, exactly. Like at first I was like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do?
Can I take notes fast enough?
Yeah, so it's definitely, that's I think been a really like fun outcome of building these relationships. And then also during these meetings, there are things that are going to come up that you have to take responsibility for things, and so you have to be responsible and say, oh, like, we'll look into it, like that could be a typo on our end, or it could, so it's not, as you mentioned earlier, like the he said, she said, like we really try not to be in that position. We try to be as open and respectful as possible, and if something does go wrong, like, we're not trying to pass the buck, we're addressing it. And especially we have like such a large audience on some of these calls that like you really you have to be so transparent.
Yeah, and our core is on those calls with us, because there has been moments where you get in that awkward position of like someone has given you feedback or asked a question and you're not quite sure if it's public knowledge yet, or how like we probably know the response of how the process is going, but it's not our role to inform the other party who is asking or questioning it. So our core has been really great. She'll jump right in. Or on meetings, if she's like has to drop, we know that she has to drop. And I feel like you have the great like one-liner about like, oh, well, we'll note that and like review back. So great, because again, we want to make sure we're protecting our core and everyone's always in the best light and not overstepping. That it's okay to say, oh, I have to go take that back and find out some more from you, even if you do already know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because sometimes things can get awkward. Just like it doesn't have to be in a meeting that's like your client versus like other stuff like that. It can just be in like a normal setting of like if you're in your office, like sometimes you just need to like go check with your boss about something
Yeah.
before you
Can respond.
yeah. And it's not there's nothing wrong with doing that, and I think that tactic has worked out well for us. And I think that we've worked hard, so when people hear that, like, we say that, they know it's not a cop-out. They know that, like, we're literally going to go back, our core is going to hear about this, and it's not going to be something that's brushed under the rug. It's, we just don't.
We don't know the exact words to say at the moment.
Exactly. And then, sorry, go for it.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, and then I was going to say, being flexible also, I think, is something that we've learned. I think a lot of people have learned that, especially in the past year and a half in the pandemic of, we are on a virtual call, and, sometimes, like, funny things happen, like, the dog barks, or, like, the doorbell rings for people, or, like, the house phone rings, and, these are just, like, common things that happen, and I think that this is, like, has, like, humanized our relationships a little bit, because then it's like, oh, like, don't worry about it, like, I have a house phone too, or, like, I have a dog, or, like, whatever, like, the situation is. I think being flexible in that sense, and then being flexible in taking on tasks. So if a task comes up, someone stands up and takes it. It's not like this, like, don't touch the ball, it's like not hot potato.
Yeah, or if it's like, I've been able to complete like 80% of this task, but I need, like, at a very specific one, for some reason in the flyers, the file of the PDF that once it got 508'd, a logo wasn't showing anymore, and no one knew where the source file was, but I was able to help out the colleague on the other team, just since I have the design tools, and I could, not like the best flyer, but we were also going to come back to revisit that one since the source file doesn't exist anymore, but was able to help her out in a pinch to get that logo to show up for her and get it back up on the website. So I think, like, doing small tasks like that, like throwing each other a bone, right? It helped her out from, like, not being stressed of, like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, or, like, I have to hear from my manager even more. Right, helping people out on those little tasks. Just, I had the tools. It was like 5 minutes of my time.
Yeah, I think those go such a far way for team building, because then it's like, oh, I can count on that person, even if it was like an odd situation or like a last minute situation, or, those definitely. And I think that's like how, like, you become friends on your actual, like, team projects, is like, like, XYZ is, or like this person is, like, swamped with whatever. Like, if you take off this, like, one thing that's been, like, nagging at them, but they just, like, haven't been able to get to on their task list, or like their ticket, like, that makes a world of difference for people, because it takes it off them, and then, like, you start to build that like relationship of, like, oh, you can count on me, like, we can, like, be friends, and
right, like we're all towards the common goal, right? It's not competitive at all.
Yeah.
And then I think also this works back to, like, at the top of the episode, we were talking about how career growth and stuff, because we're able to help folks complete small tasks, right? They can move on to other things, because that wasn't in her wheelhouse at all. Or even within our own team, having those emails templatized, we're able to get other teammates to send emails, right? Because we have, like, stuff for user research activities that is, like, fairly templatized, and we use Confluence, which is an online, like, document repo web browser thing out of oh my gosh, now I'm, like, digging myself a hole, out of Atlassian, which offers a lot of, we use Jira and Confluence. So Jira helps us manage our quote unquote tickets, which are, like, our to-dos of a project, and Confluence is just an online collaboration place where you can go for any documentation. So for our UX team, right, the email templates, so someone can take on, if we have a new team member rolling on, or sometimes we have different people as resources, for like 50% of the time or not, we have that of what's already been approved by our core, and they're just changing out the details, like the date and the subject of the activity, and then they're able to grow and get some more experience.
Yeah, and especially as we've come up in the ranks a little bit over the past couple of years, especially, like, I think from like a personal standpoint of like we've just gained confidence, and then we've had a ton of PM support to like help us grow.
Yeah.
And I think that has, like, we're now in a position where we really want to sort of return the favor, and that might not be the correct phrase, but we want to make sure that people who maybe have been where we started have the same opportunities that we've been afforded. And like everything is a learning opportunity. Like one of my favorite examples is, so one of our other teammates was working on like a visual design of something, and like it was great, but like the color scheme wasn't working. But then like the day before, like you had taught us about color theory. And so I was like, and I'm like probably like like on our like UX team, I am not the designer on the UX team. Like we'll just leave it at that. And so I wasn't I like said it in like a funny way, but I was like, oh, we can use like blue and orange because Marie taught us about color theory yesterday, like how they like balance.
Compliment.
Yeah. And so like it came out, like people like laughed at it, but I was being serious. Like, you know, these are like funny examples of just like in conversation you pick up, like I would have never guessed, like I would have never known anything about this color theory thing, but it was just something that you were like able to teach us in like a very like nonchalant conversation. I don't even know what we were talking about the day before, but it like came up, and then we could apply it in like real time the next day, just happenstance. So just like, you know, every interaction can be something where you teach a tidbit or help someone out with like ways that they don't know yet, but they can apply it at a later time.
Yeah, no, I think that is great. Do you have any other final thoughts?
I think I really like the no competition that you've like been talking about. I think that has made a world of difference on our team as like teammates, but then also really bridging the gaps when you're working with other organizations. Like work towards a common goal. Don't try to attack each other. I think that's been something that we really strive to do, and I think that has really built a lot of trust because we've been so collaborative.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's very enjoyable to just email whoever we need to, or right then and like, because we're in the world of the design and the user experience and the showcasing of the solutions, you can get into those meetings for feedback, and they can sometimes become attacking, but ours have turned into collaboration and just talking through it. And we've done other steps of bringing folks in more than just our core, whoever she's identified, earlier on into like the wire framing and whiteboarding, which we are now doing in Miro, or you can also do, we have Envision Freehand. We've tended to do it in Miro because we also have all of our user research from affinity mapping, which we've talked about before, is we've collected and curated like statements from our user interviews into bigger patterns. So we have that right there to reference while we're doing the online quote unquote whiteboarding of the wireframe, but having them in earlier, and we've had cross teams be in those meetings, that when we get to the point of like feedback on the final mock-up or the UAT, I think they're more enjoyable. Yeah. It's not like the first time someone is seen, like, oh my gosh, and now this is like the one and only time I have to express myself. They've known they've been a part of it from the beginning and have seen it evolve. So yeah, like we've just changed it to be collaborative.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's I think that's made a world of difference, so people can see it throughout the process.
Yeah,
so true.
Cool. This was Mock It. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and join us next time. As always, if you're interested in learning more about how government and tech collide, visit MetroStar.com and follow us on social media.